The Steelers signed a defensive tackle, and still no answer from Aaron Rodgers. Big Deke news. What are the Steelers doing?
What the hell's going on out here?
Well, they just signed former New England Patriots starting defensive tackle Daniel Ekuale.
Who?
Yeah, had no clue who Daniel Ekuale was before yesterday. But that doesn't make this a bad signing necessarily, because he was literally last year the New England Patriots starting defensive tackle. Now, he is older. He's up there in age. He's been in the league for, last year was his 6th year, so he's going on his 7th year. And last year was the only year he's ever started in the league. He's played more snaps last year than he did the previous 5 years combined. So maybe a late bloomer, but his rep is more of like a journeyman, backup, depth dude, can start whenever guys in front of him have injuries and you can get out of a stadium. Almost like probably for us, like I'm on Travis Adams. Kind of probably comparable to getting Tyson Alualu back in the day too. We're getting a dude that could probably be our primary nose tackle, but we're not looking for him to be playing more than like 30% of the snaps. I think he does help us a lot in the run defense, pretty decent run stopper. We lost Ogunjobi, and how about that? He gets suspended for 6 games for performance-enhancing drugs like the day after he signed with the Bills. But anyway, back to Ekuale. I think he has the potential to be a better run stopper than Ogunjobi. I don't know about necessarily better overall player, but the silver lining is we'll be paying Ekuale a lot less than what we were paying Ogunjobi, so there's that. Now, the problem is we're still going to have to draft a defensive tackle in the first round as we sit here. Like the Steelers, we still don't have an answer at quarterback. Now, I think most of us are good with rolling with Mason, but we're still on the Aaron Rodgers timeline. We don't know what's going to happen there. And then I'm seeing reports about us looking for some other quarterbacks in case the Aaron Rodgers thing falls through. Maybe we draft a guy in the first round. Maybe we bring in a veteran like Jameis Winston. I'll talk about that in a little bit. But we don't have answer at quarterback. One of the main things we needed to figure out this offseason. We don't have an answer for defensive tackle just yet. This guy is going to be a help. I'm happy that we made this signing. I think it's a nice move, but we still need to pick up someone in the draft early, like first round early. Honestly, that's the number one position we need right now going into the draft as we sit here today, even after signing this guy. So this isn't a move that's making a big wave or changing our draft plans, or it's going to be this huge catalyst for our defense. It's not a bad move, but we still don't have that defensive line help that I think we were really looking for after how we ended last season, especially with us cutting Ogunjobi. So now we just have Cam Hayward, Keanu Benton, DeMarvin Leal, when we pick up Ekuale as our top 4. Montravius Adams, I guess he's still on the roster. I'm pretty sure he's still on the roster. Not sure on that. I can't remember if he was an unrestricted free agent or not. But that's where we're at. We still got to draft a dude in the first round. We still got to draft like Kenneth Grant. Receiver, cornerback, we took care of in free agency. By bringing in DK Metcalf, we don't got to worry about drafting a receiver. As long as we don't trade Pickens. And I'm seeing some rumblings about the Steelers not giving him an extension, which I get. Yeah, I completely get that. But I'm also seeing people saying it's 50-50 if Pickens is going to be on the roster for week 1. Not only would I be open to giving Pickens an extension, depends how those talks go and depends on what the number is and all that type of stuff. I'm open to it. I understand why the Steelers wouldn't do it, though. We've been over that. But also, we shouldn't trade him, even if we can't get him the extension. As we sit here right now, there's no reason to even think about trading Pickens, I don't think. Because he hasn't shown any, I guess, dissatisfaction with his current situation. He hasn't said, I need a contract extension or I'm going to hold out. He hasn't said, I don't want to be here, trade me. He hasn't said any of that. So, yeah, I don't think there's any reason to trade Pickens. I don't even think that should be a thought right now. See what happens as the rest of the offseason goes, but right now, I want Pickens and Metcalf as wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2 for week 1. I want to see what that looks like because that could be pretty special. Even if it is Mason throwing them the ball. Because, again, Mason, he's got an arm. He's got a good deep ball. We got to witness that at the end of the 2023 season. So I don't think we should do that. But anyway, we got receiver taken care of. We got cornerback taken care of this offseason. And those were 2 of the big needs we talked about. Receiver, cornerback, defensive tackle, and quarterback. And now it's running back going into the draft with us not re-signing Najee Harris. Now we got to be looking at running back. So with that DK Metcalf trade and us missing a second-round pick, what sucks is our needs, I think, are a little bit higher than what our assets are and our resources are going into the draft, our draft selections, and even what's still out there in free agency at those certain positions. Defensive tackle, that's the thing that sucks right now. We kind of whiffed. Ekuale is a nice move, but missed on Kinlaw, missed on Hargrave, missed on a bunch of guys that were out there, like a Poona Ford, Milton Williams. We were never going to sign Milton Williams. There was a bunch of dudes out there where if you signed them, you wouldn't necessarily have to worry about interior defensive line early in the draft, almost like what we did with DK Metcalf. And apparently we tried. Kinlaw was on our radar. I'm sure Hargrave was on our radar. Who knows what we offered or how competitive the offer was. But that's where we're at, man. I'm scratching my head like a little bit. I think if we get Aaron Rodgers, that'll cover some of what we got going on in free agency. Like the DK Metcalf move was nice. The moves we made are nice. It's just that I wish we would have made one or two more moves to solidify everything else. We were aggressive in getting Darius Slay. Like day one, we knew that a Darius Slay deal was in the works. Didn't get it confirmed till Wednesday. Darius Slay, getting Eccles, also Malik Harrison, and obviously the DK Metcalf trade, making that move before free agency started, giving up a second-round pick for him, signing him to that deal. Like, those were aggressive moves. It's just, why didn't we shore up defensive line? I get waiting on running back because how good this running back class is. I get that. Defensive line, though, it wouldn't have hurt because we still have the cap space. We still have like $40 million in cap space. We could have easily paid Kinlaw the $15 million or Hargrave I don't know what he got with the Vikings. Then you get like $12 or $15 million per year. We could have done that. I do like this Ekuale move, though. Don't get me wrong. It's just we're still in a similar spot to where we were before we signed Ekuale. We still need a defensive tackle early in this draft. Not only to play some snaps for us in their rookie year, but also we need a guy to get ready to catch that torch from Cam Hayward. Because I don't think it's realistic for us to ask Cam Hayward to take on the same workload that he has in recent years as he continues to age. We got to get someone that can give him a breather and then ultimately be the guy with Keanu Benton once Cam Hayward retires. So we definitely need to draft a defensive lineman here. Kenneth Grant from Michigan looks like a nice pick for us in the first round. But we also need running back. We could get a running back in the third. And if we're just going to be rocking with Mason, a quarterback could very well be in play too in the first round. And that would take away our chances of getting a defensive lineman. So we're in a weird spot because we don't have that second-round pick. And don't get me wrong, I'd still do that DK Metcalf trade. It's just we got to be savvy now with how we operate in the draft. Maybe we trade back in the first and still have a late first or get an early second and an additional second or an additional third on top of it. We might have to do something like that because this draft, I feel like this draft's depth is pretty good. Like there's good depth on the defensive line, depth at running back and defensive line for this year's class. So it might not be a bad call to trade back. There's not a bunch of like star power. I don't think we're going to have these surefire guys dropping to us at 21, guys with like super talent you think are going to be can't miss. But I think there's going to be options available, and they'll probably still be available late in the first, whether it's running back or defensive tackle, and early in the second. So trading back might not be a bad move. More I think of it just to get that extra early pick to shore up some of our needs. But quarterback, as we sit here right now, could and very well should be in play in the first round. I'm also good rolling with Mason, man. Like at this point, if it comes down to it, maybe we just go all in with Mason, almost like how I was talking with Fields. Depending on how the rest of his free agency goes, maybe you just say, screw getting quarterback. Let's get that defensive tackle. Give the keys to Mason. Like I said, give the keys to Fields. Let's see what he got. Let's see what he got for a season because there's no sure thing in this draft. There are any of these guys that are going to be there at 21 in terms of the quarterbacks where you're saying to yourself, yeah, that guy's going to guaranteed be a better option than Mason next year. Now, maybe going forward, maybe some of these guys have more upside. I get it. But unless you're getting Cam Ward, I don't know, man. I don't know if we got to go out of our way in the first round to get a quarterback. And we give Mason all the resources possible. We give him the best chance to prove if he could be the guy. If he can't, then 2026, we're back at it. Maybe that's the move. Just try to load up this team, shore up this team as best as we can around Mason, see what he's got. Because that's where I just feel like that's where we're at. Like, I think that's just the reality of the situation, especially if we don't get Aaron Rodgers. That's just where we're at. That's how free agency played out. And let's not act like with Justin Fields, how we were talking like a week ago, at least me, we were saying the same thing. It's just that we got Mason here and Fields. I mean, it's same formula, but just different player. Fields ended up signing with the Jets, and apparently Jeremy Fowler was saying our offer was basically the Jets' offer.
They put together an offer for Justin Fields that I was told was very competitive with what the Jets offered him, which was 2 years, $40 million with $30 million guaranteed. I do believe they were all in on Fields. I don't know if they had Fields ahead of Rodgers, but they were willing to do Fields. Like, both sides at one point were open to it. It didn't work.
Everything I heard before that was that we offered Fields $10 million less. But it was competitive. It was around the same. Fields just chose the Jets. And I think ultimately, that's the thing with Fields. I understand why he did it. I don't think that's going to be the right decision for him, though, going to the Jets. It's just one of those organizations, one of those situations where bad things happen. Unfortunately. I mean, we wish him the best and everything, but I think if the offers were like this, I think it would have been smarter for Fields to stay in Pittsburgh. I think it would have been smarter for his career and everything. Especially with the connection he had with Arthur Smith. Now, I get, trust me, again, I get why he looked at the Jets. But money's less of a factor if the deals were that similar. Definitely less of a factor. So you take that out of play. What the Jets had going for them versus the Steelers was just, I guess a more modern offensive coordinator coming from the Ben Johnson tree. But let's not act like Arthur Smith and Justin Fields weren't doing good things when they were a tandem in their 6 games together last year. I don't know. Just because that offensive coordinator's up and coming doesn't mean he's a better option than Arthur Smith. He gets to play with his teammate from Ohio State, Garrett Wilson. And I guess the trust factor. I think that's the X factor in this whole situation. If Fields just didn't trust the Steelers anymore, point blank period, then maybe there was just nothing we could have offered. There was nothing here for him that could have saved that dynamic. So it is what it is. I do think, all things equal, though, for Fields, it would have been the better option to stay here. What about some of these other quarterbacks that are out there in free agency? What could be our next plan after Rodgers' decision if he doesn't pick the Steelers? Because we obviously have Mason, and that's it. What could we be doing? Draft. That's another way to fill out the depth chart. Already talked about that a little bit. Wouldn't be opposed to drafting a guy early to compete with Mason. Also, wouldn't be opposed to just drafting a guy late and saying, screw it, let's give the keys to Mason and see what happens. But in that scenario, in the latter scenario, we would definitely have to invest something in like a free agent veteran quarterback to either be Mason's backup or have some pseudo type of competition this offseason. Jameis Winston, his name's being thrown out there. That wouldn't be a bad option. Joe Flacco's name's been tossed out there as well. Some insiders are saying Joe Flacco to the Steelers might have some steam. I get that on paper. I can't see Joe Flacco in a Steeler uniform. Let's just not do it, man. I can't see it. And the thing is, too, I get Joe Flacco had his little run with the Browns. But it was a little run with the Browns. That was it. Even with the Colts last year, he had 2 or 3 games, looked decent, and then became the Joe Flacco that we knew. And that kind of happened in the Browns stint where, all right, had that run for 5 or 6 games, got them like into serious playoff contention, and then you saw what happened in the wildcard game. Threw multiple picks, basically threw them into a loss. Became Joe Flacco. And that's, I don't know, maybe it's just the Steeler goggles, the battles we had with Joe Flacco back then. I've never viewed him as that good. Never viewed him as that good. Outside of that crazy-ass playoff run back in like 2011, 2012. And then that like 4 or 5 games with the Browns. Everything else throughout his career has been meh. It's been average, mediocre, honestly. So not only that, I don't think we can. We can't do it. It just feels like blasphemy. It feels like sacrilege to have Joe Flacco on the Steelers. I'm trying to think of other veteran names. Kirk Cousins, that's been thrown out there too. As the backup, that's the thing. For me, like a Kirk Cousins as backup, fine. I don't want Kirk Cousins starting for this team. I do not. I'm really taking, I truly am. I'm taking remember how I said going into free agency, if it wasn't Rodgers, then Fields. If it wasn't Fields, then Rodgers. That's kind of where I'm at with Mason and Rodgers. If it isn't Mason, then go Rodgers. If it isn't Rodgers, just go with Mason. But I do think we still could. When I say Mason, maybe just making an open competition with Mason. Mason and Jameis. Mason and trade for like a Joe Milton. Although I'm hearing Patriots won like a third rounder. That might be a little steep. That might be a little steep there. But it's just that concept of Mason plus maybe veteran backup, veteran guy out there that's still in free agency competition, or Mason versus quarterback that you draft. May the best man win. Open competition. But let Mason have a legit chance, though. Like one time, just give the man a legit chance to prove that he could be the guy. And if he's the week one guy, try to give him the 17 games. See what he could do with it. But I think that's where we're at. That's the update on Steelers world, really. That's where we're at. Signed a defensive tackle. Still need to draft a defensive tackle. No Rodgers answer yet. We're getting names floated out there for another quarterback to be added into the room, which understandable if Rodgers doesn't sign here. Because if Rodgers signs here, then it's Rodgers, Mason, plus probably guy we draft late in the draft somewhere. 5th, 6th round, 7th round. Them competing with Skylar Thompson for QB3. That's what we're looking at. But all right, that's it for today's show. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Stay chilling. Peace.